Hello everybody, we are back again today. We're doing another player profile for this upcoming draft that is happening Tuesday if I'm not mistaken, and we are going to be talking about Adam Fantilli today. So before we start, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to my channel. If not, no big deal. Now let's get into it. So the 18-year-old is coming off of a great year at Michigan. Of course, he ended up getting his name written in the record books as just the third player, if I'm not mistaken, in NCAA hockey history to win the Hobie Baker Award his freshman year, the others being Paul Kariya and then Jack Eichel, two big names in the NHL. So let's talk about some of the pros of his game and what could help him out early on. Now, not all of these things that I'm saying here are necessarily my takes because it's hard to come up with enough, kind of pros and cons when you don't have a lot of footage compared to what scouts are able to do and all that stuff. But I do think there are some things that we can talk about here. One of those being skating. It does seem like a lot of people are very favorable of Fantilli's ability to skate. They think he is a good in-end guy. He can work in traffic and make things happen, so that is kind of a great thing to have. In fact, some people are saying that he's the best skater in this draft. I'm not exactly sure, again, how you would be able to say this is a for sure thing, but it is something we've seen on multiple draft profiles, player profiles, talking about his ability to skate, which is good for him. Another good thing for him is the fact that he's got a great shot. Now, I know that's crazy to say that a guy that is probably going to be taken in the top 4, probably top 2 in the NHL draft has got a great shot, but it does seem like he does. And I think a big thing that's really good for him is he's really able to take a lot of unconventional shots. He's got a great release, just nice and quick with the release, but at the same time, if the puck takes a weird bounce, if there's a rebound or just it plays weird off the boards, he seems to be able to be right there in the moment and just boom, with that quick shot, able to get it, top corner, just get it to where there's enough space to make things work. And in the NHL, the ability to have that instant reaction time, A, with a quick shot, but B, to be in the right place at the right time when there is a weird bounce off the boards or something like that, is going to be so crucial for him and his success. Now, another thing is just his potential. He is only 18, which a lot of these guys are really, really young, but you look at what he did his first year with Michigan, or his only year with Michigan unless he decides to go back, and you realize just what he was able to do, again, being there with Kariya and Eichel for the Hobie Baker Award. Incredible. Michigan went pretty far this year. Obviously, a team that's been able to pump out first-round talent, especially as of late. And for him, if he is this good at 18 and has the ability to continue to grow, you really do wonder what that potential will be when he's 25, 26, 27, when he's hitting that prime of his career for whoever that would be. Now let's talk about some of the cons. Now, these are a little bit hard to talk about too, but I do think that there are some things we could point out. The first one, it seems like a lot of his offense comes from in zone. Now, a lot of people, again, will say, oh, he has the ability to go back and forth up and down the ice, and that's great. But I do think one thing you notice with him is a lot of his points come from inside the offensive zone, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but you do wonder in the NHL level, will he be able to have a good transition game? And do you think that he'll be able to take advantage of things off the rush, or is he going to be a guy that has to really get a lot of his offense from inside the offensive zone? If so, it's not the end of the world, but you do know that if he isn't a threat off the rush, that is something that the opposing team is going to be aware of and just something you have to watch out for. Another thing is, this isn't necessarily my take, but I did read this off of multiple articles written by people that were doing draft profiles. They say he tries to be the hero a little bit too much. It's wild to imagine that a player that's 18 years old at Michigan, of all places, would try to be the hero, but if that's the case, that's obviously something to watch out for. He is going to be going to a team that probably is not in a great spot, but there are some teams that I do think right now that if he got sent to, he wouldn't have to necessarily be the hero. Just something to watch out for. Let's say if he went to Chicago, he would probably have to try to be the hero more often than not compared to a place like Columbus, San Jose, Anaheim, really. All those teams kind of have guys that you would say they have enough talent that they should be able to kind of keep him sheltered away from having to play the hero role, but we will see there. And then occasionally, I think one of the other things is, this isn't a big deal, but it is something to watch out for. He makes some really interesting passes that could lead to turnovers at the NHL level, especially with the defenseman having a lot of film and having just the veteran IQ. There are some times that I think he gets a little bit too risky with it, or makes a play that, it's just kind of one of those things where I, on my NHL career player mode, would make, because I can see the whole bit of ice, or at least the chunk that you're in, so I can make the pass. He can't. So he's going off of, probably where these guys practice and where they play and where he thinks they'll be. and then B, where he thinks the defenders will be in the NHL that first year. If he tries to do some of that stuff, it might not work, but again, with him being a younger player, it doesn't bother me that much. Just something to watch out for in the first few years of his career. So who are some teams that want him? Well, realistically, you would say that there is a lot of teams that want him. He is a guy that could be a building block for the future, and a lot of people do view him as a top 2 center for a team coming up in the future, or just a top 6 forward if he doesn't work out down the middle. I think at the end of the day, you're probably looking at Anaheim or Montreal. Anaheim makes the most sense. He's kind of the consolation prize for not getting Bedard, and in a lot of different drafts, maybe he would be the first overall picker, would be in that top end, just like Yowie is now. But also Montreal is kind of making a push right now too, where apparently they are rumored to want either the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th overall pick. They are 5th, so they really want to make a push and get some of that top end talent and not have to take a risk, because it does seem like after the top 4, it does get a little interesting and tapers off a bit. Not saying that these guys couldn't be as talented or more talented, but the top 4 really seem to be set here this year, or at least around that top 5 range. So they want Fantilli. If they can't get him, I don't know what's going to happen. What do they feel like giving up to get him? That remains to be seen, as Anaheim is likely the favorite to pick him. And then what is a player comparison? Well, right now, NHL, the website actually has him listed as a comparable to Nathan MacKinnon. That's a lot to ask. That's a tall order right there, especially because MacKinnon is one of those two-way forces, a guy that can play so many minutes and be the hero for his team. I'm not going to say it as much because I feel like I'm not as familiar with Fantilli compared to Bedard. Bedard's a guy that I watched or tried to watch as much as possible, whereas Fantilli, it's a little bit harder to get full footage for him. But I will say that if you are a MacKinnon level player, Anaheim is going to be just tickled pink if they're able to get him, and then he turns out to be a guy like that for them in the coming years as they try to get back to being a cup contender. So overall, what are my thoughts here? My thoughts are that Fantilli is probably going to be a very good player in the NHL, or at least seems to be one of those guys that, just measures pretty well in a lot of circumstances, and is kind of being overshadowed, unfortunately, by Bedard, because Bedard is talked about as being the next McDavid, the next so-and-so all-time great. So it does seem unfortunate for Fantilli, because he is a very good player and is probably going to be a great player for whoever gets to pick him, but that's just a reality. You remember Eichel didn't get as much love because McDavid obviously was the prize for that draft. But I also think that if he does go to Anaheim, that might not be such a bad thing, because they could probably put him maybe on the 3rd line, however they want to play around with it. I really don't know. Shelter him there a little bit and then give him some time on the power play. I think with that shot, he really could be a guy that's set up well to just take a lot of shots on the man advantage and then kind of get ushered in offensively that way, but we will see. As for the whole Montreal thing, I really don't know what's exactly going to happen there, and I don't want to say that it's kind of a given that he'll probably be drafted by Anaheim, but the whole Montreal situation seems like it hasn't gained a lot of traction as of late, and they don't seem to be willing to give up whatever Anaheim would want to do if they did do a trade here, which of course would probably be a pretty good amount to give up. But I will say he does seem to be one of the many Michigan players in recent years that are top choices in the draft that look like they're probably going to do pretty well. And if what we've seen in recent years with a lot of these guys, especially the 2021 draft for the Michigan players, they're going to be a-okay. But anyway, what are your thoughts on Adam Fantilli? Do you think that he will be a good player in the NHL? Do you think he will be drafted by Anaheim or somebody else? I'd love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe. Have a great night. Eagle of Hockey, all right. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.